The stars looked quiet, but Commander Riven knew better. He had flown across dead galaxies, through black holes, and past broken moons. But something about this part of space, the silent graveyard, felt different, too quiet. It wasn't just the silence of space. It was the silence after something terrible. His ship, the Harrower, moved slowly, scanning the dark. Lights flickered on the control panel. Riven leaned forward, eyes narrowed. "Commander," said Nova, the ship's AI, "there's a signal. Very weak, old format." Riven frowned. "From where?" "Coordinates 09 Theta, deep inside the graveyard." He tapped the screen. "Put it on speaker." A crackling voice, broken by static, whispered through the speakers. "Valorian. Still holding. Status unknown." "Repeat." It stopped. Then it repeated again, the exact same way. Riven sat back. "How long has this been broadcasting?" 316 years, Nova answered. He didn't speak for a moment. The Galactic War had started only 30 years ago. But the signal, it was from the First War. A war no one talked about anymore. A war that ended in silence. Riven stood and walked to the window. Outside, the graveyard drifted like a frozen sea of steel-dead ships, broken battleships, shattered colonies. The galaxy's forgotten war machines floated here, untouched, unmapped. "Should we report it to command?" asked Lieutenant Mara. From her station, he shook his head. "No, if we do, they'll block access and send in scavengers. But it could be dangerous. That's why I want to go." Mara looked worried. She had flown with him for years, but even she could feel it. This wasn't a normal mission. The ship turned toward the source of the signal. As they entered the heart of the graveyard, shadows stretched across the windows. Massive ship corpses drifted by, some the size of cities. Their lights were dead, engines silent, no signs of life. Yet somehow, Riven felt eyes watching him from every corner. Nova spoke again. "Commander, the signal is getting clearer. I'm detecting the source still powered. Ship class unknown. Hull is intact." Riven raised an eyebrow. "Intact? After 300 years?" "Yes, and it's hidden between two battle cruisers." "Take us closer." As they moved in, the hidden ship came into view. It was beautiful. Black and gold armor, wings shaped like a bird, and symbols they didn't recognize. It didn't match any known model from the current fleets. Mara whispered, "Is that ... from Earth?" Riven shook his head. "Older. This ship is from the Valorian fleet, but they disappeared during the First War. People say they betrayed the Allied Corps." "No, they were betrayed," Riven muttered. "That's what the history books don't say." They docked. "Commander," Nova warned. "I detect life signs, weak, deep inside the ship. Suit up," he ordered. "We're going in." Inside, the air was cold and thick. The lights were dim, but still working. It was like stepping into a frozen memory. They walked past glass tubes, each holding a person in stasis, unmoving, but not dead. Mara stepped closer to one of them. "They look ... alive." "They are," Riven said. "The stasis field is still holding." "But why would an entire crew be asleep for centuries?" That's when they reached the control room. Nova's voice echoed in their helmets. "Signal origin located. Activating main console." The ship's systems lit up. One of the tubes began to open. Steam hissed. "Out." A man stepped forward, tall, armored, and breathing hard. His eyes opened slowly, glowing faintly blue. He looked around, confused. Then he saw Riven. "Who commands this vessel?" he asked in a strange accent. "I do," Riven answered. "You're not Valorian?" "No, I'm Commander Riven of the Allied Corps." The man looked down, almost in pain. "Then we lost." "What happened to your fleet?" Riven asked. The man's voice was bitter. "We were winning, until we were called back by the High Command. They said we were needed to defend the homeworld. But when we arrived here, they sealed us in. Sent a wave of ships to destroy us. This graveyard is our prison. But why? Politics, fear. We had power. They feared we'd take control after the war ended. Riven's heart pounded. And you've been asleep ever since? Until your signal woke me. More tubes began to hum, others slowly powering up. Commander, Nova interrupted. More life signs are stabilizing. The fleet ... it's waking up. We need to leave, Mara said, panicked. This is getting out of control, but Riven stared at the man. What's your name? Captain Kale, last leader of the Valorian. You want revenge? Kale's face was hard. I want justice, Riven nodded. Then we'll help each other. Mara grabbed his arm. Are you insane? No, I'm tired of fighting wars. For cowards who hide the truth. If this fleet can help end the war, we must use it. Kale looked at the stasis pods. They will follow me. We can be ready. Suddenly, the ship shook. Nova, what was that? Riven shouted. Enemy ships detected. 1. No, 2 destroyers, our own. They're targeting the graveyard, Mara gasped. How did they find us? Command must have been watching, Riven growled. They don't want this fleet coming. Back, then we don't give them a choice, Kale said. Let's wake the Valorian. Riven turned to his crew. Get ready. We're not leaving empty-handed. Lights flickered all over the hidden ship as power returned. Across the graveyard, other ships began to respawn, silent warriors, rising from the dead. Outside, the enemy destroyers moved in, but they didn't know what they were waking, because deep in the silence of space, the ghosts were coming back. The graveyard was alive now. Riven stood at the window of the Harrower, watching broken ships light up around him. What once looked like floating metal corpses were now glowing with faint blue energy. Power lines hummed. Engines blinked. The lost fleet was waking. We've stirred the dead, whispered Lieutenant Mara, her eyes wide with fear. Commander Riven didn't answer. His mind raced. The message they found. The survivor they woke, Captain Kale. It was all true. The graveyard wasn't just a place of death. It was a trap. A prison. And now, the prisoners were stirring. Nova, the ship's II spoke calmly. Commander, the energy levels across the graveyard are rising. Unknown vessels are powering up. Estimated activation, 64 ships and climbing. Still no contact. From command? Riven asked. Negative. But 2 destroyers are approaching fast. They will arrive in 6 minutes. Then we don't have much time. Kale stood beside him, tall and still. He wore ancient Valorian armor, dark blue with silver veins running across it. His face was calm, but his eyes burned with anger and memory. This fleet isn't fully awake, Kale said. Most systems need time, but we can send a beacon. The others will respond. What kind of beacon? Mara asked. Kale looked out the window. A pulse. A call to arms, something only Valorian ships can hear. But we need to reach the control core. Where is it? Riven asked. Below the dead zone. Mara turned sharply. The what? Kale's voice lowered. The center of this graveyard. A black sphere of wreckage, filled with lost ships, broken weapons, radiation storms, and other things. Other things? Mara asked. Kale didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, they left us down there. Not just ships, people. Creatures made by war. Experiments that no one should have created. Lovely, Riven muttered. But that's where the control core is? Kale nodded. It's the only way to wake the whole fleet. Riven looked at his crew. Get ready, we're going in. The dropship flew low between wrecked battleships. Outside the windows, massive hulls floated like dead whales. Some still had burn marks. Others looked like they had been sliced clean in half. No light, no sound. Only drifting shadows. As they approached the dead zone, everything changed. The stars disappeared. The air inside the ship felt heavier. Even Nova's voice grew faint, as if something was pressing down on the signal. "We're entering the dead zone now," said the pilot. The view ahead was horrifying. Thousands of ships, all twisted and fused together, floated in a dark spiral. It looked like a storm of metal. Some ships were glowing from inside, dim red lights blinking like dying hearts. Others cracked open, leaking frozen bodies into space. "This is worse than I imagined," Mara whispered. Cale closed his eyes. "I remember this place. We sent rescue missions here. None returned." A loud thump echoed through the ship. "What was that?" Riven asked. Nova's voice crackled. "Unidentified contact on the hull. Movement detected. External cameras offline." The lights inside flickered. Mara grabbed her blaster. "We're not alone." Another loud sound, like claws scraping metal. "Everyone stay sharp," Riven said. "Cale, where's the core?" Cale pointed. "That structure between those ships, that's the Valorian command tower. We reach it, we activate the pulse." The dropship landed roughly near the base of the tower. Metal groaned beneath them. They stepped out, weapons ready. The silence was crushing. No radio noise, no comm signals. Just the creaking of old metal and the echo of their boots' dot as they entered the tower. The halls lit up, dim blue lights guiding their path. "This system still works?" Mara asked. Cale looked confused. "Someone must have maintained it." That's when they saw the first body dot. It was hanging from the ceiling, wrapped in black cables. Its skin was pale, eyes open, mouth frozen in a silent scream. Strange symbols were burned into its chest. Mara stepped back. "That's not human." "It was," Cale said. "Before the betrayers made them into weapons." They moved quickly after that, deeper into the tower. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the hallway. "You should not have come." Riven froze. "Who said that?" Cale grabbed his blade. "It's them. The Watchers." "Watchers?" Mara whispered. "They were made to guard this place. Machines. Minds linked to old generals. But after centuries alone, they went mad." A door slammed shut behind them. Another opened ahead. "Keep moving," Riven shouted. They ran through dark halls. Behind them, strange shapes moved in the shadows. Machines with long arms and sharp faces. Human voices came from their mouths, but their eyes were empty. "Leave the dead alone." "You are not welcome." Riven fired his blaster. Sparks flew. One of the creatures dropped, but two more replaced it. Cale turned and slashed through one, his blade humming with light. They reached the core chamber. A huge orb floated in the center, connected to dozens of wires and machines. It pulsed slowly like a sleeping heart. "This is it," Cale said. "We activate the orb, send the signal, and run." "How long will it take?" Riven asked. Cale stepped onto the platform. 30 seconds. The machines screamed louder. Doors burst open. Watchers poured in, crawling on walls, their voices chanting. "End the light. Silence the signal. Bury the truth." Mara and Riven held them off, firing nonstop. Cale placed his hand on the orb. It lit up, glowing brighter and brighter. The chamber shook. A pulse burst from the orb, shooting out like a shockwave through the graveyard. All the machines froze. Then they screamed. Their bodies cracked and burned. One by one, they fell, twitching and sparking. Then silence. Cale stepped down, his face pale. "It's done." Outside, the graveyard lit up like a city waking at dawn. Ships began to move. Engines roared to life. Lights flashed in every direction. Nova's voice returned, loud and clear. "Commander, all Valorian ships are online. Signal received. The fleet is awakening." Riven exhaled. "Let's get back to the Harrower. We've just changed the war." But deep in the dead zone, behind them, flickering lights, something still moved, slow, quiet, and watching. And it wasn't done yet. The stars around the graveyard were no longer silent. The pulse sent from the command tower had changed everything. Once dead ships, forgotten for centuries, were now coming back to life. Lights blinked across massive hulls. Engines rumbled softly, like beasts waking from long sleep. The frozen giants had begun to stir. On board the Harrower, Commander Riven watched with wide eyes as dozens of Valorian ships powered up one by one. Their smooth, curved designs stood in sharp contrast to the newer ships of the modern war. These vessels looked like they had been built by artists, not soldiers, sleek, deadly, and beautiful. They floated slowly, silently organizing into formation, like ghosts remembering who they once were. Unbelievable, Mara whispered. They're actually moving. Nova's voice echoed from the ship's main console. Commander, Valorian fleet count, 74 active. 22 more powering up. No hostile action detected. They are awaiting orders. Captain Kale stood beside Riven, silent, as if listening to something only he could hear. His face was still pale from the pulse. Whatever energy he had used to wake the fleet had taken a toll. They remember me, Kale said quietly. They remember their captain. Then they'll follow you? Riven asked. Kale nodded. They will rise again. Before they could say more, Nova interrupted. Incoming transmission from Valorian ship the Aegis Star. Captain on board requests permission to dock. Kale's face changed. That was my second in command. Do you trust him? Mara asked. I used to, Kale said. But that was 300 years ago. A minute later, the airlock hissed open. A tall woman in dark armor stepped in. Her hair was white, eyes glowing faint blue like Kale's. She moved like a warrior, calm and controlled. Captain Kale, she said. Commander Vera, Kale replied. You're alive. She stared at him. Barely. What happened? Why are we awake? Kale turned toward Riven. Because of him. Vera looked at Riven, unreadable. You're not Valorian. No, Riven replied. I'm Allied Corps, and I'm the reason you're not still frozen. She nodded slowly, but there was tension in her voice. You brought us back ... but for what? To finish what your fleet started, Riven said. To win a war that never really ended. Silence filled the room. Finally Vera spoke. Then let me show you something. Riven, Mara, and Kale followed Vera through a narrow tunnel on the Aegis Star. The ship was in excellent condition, clean, powered, and fully operational. It didn't look like it had been asleep for 3 centuries. They stopped at a sealed chamber. Vera placed her hand on the scanner. The door opened slowly with a hiss. Inside were dozens of stasis pods, but these were different. The figures inside were bigger than normal humans. Their armor was thicker. Their faces had been changed, some with metal, some with markings that pulsed with light. What are these? Mara asked. Vera's voice was heavy. The Titans. Kale's expression darkened. I ordered them destroyed. They survived, Vera said. I kept them hidden, I thought. Maybe one day we'd need them. The Titans? Riven asked. What are they? Kale looked at him. Valorian super soldiers. Built in secret during the last days of the First War. Faster, stronger, impossible to kill. But they were unstable. Some turned against their own. Others lost their minds. We froze them before they could destroy us. And now they're waking. Up? Mara asked, stepping back. Yes, Vera said. Because the pulse didn't just reach ships. It reached everything. Suddenly, one of the pods hissed. The figure inside opened its eyes. Bright red light stared out. Vera, Kale warned. Shut it down. I can't, she said. They're on their own systems now. The pod opened. The Titan stepped out taller than any of them, armored from head to toe. It looked around, then spoke in a deep, broken voice. Orders? Vera stepped forward. You're awake. We need you. The Titan stared at her, then at Kale. War? Yes, Kale replied. The war continues. The Titan paused, then nodded once. We serve. More pods began to open. Riven leaned closer to Kale. Can we trust them? Kale's answer was slow. Only as long as the mission is clear. If they lose purpose, they become something else. Suddenly, alarms blared through the Harrower. Nova, what's happening? Riven asked. Commander, incoming Fleet 8 destroyers, Allied Corps signatures. They found us. They must have traced the pulse, Mara said. They're charging weapons, Nova added. Vera's face hardened. So they'd rather destroy us than let us return. Looks that way, Riven said. We need to move. Kale looked. At the Titans now standing in formation, we fight. Vera smiled slightly, just like old times. In space, the frozen giants turned toward the enemy fleet. Engines lit, cannons unfolded. The air around the Harrower vibrated as power surged through ancient systems. All Valorian ships locking targets. Nova reported, awaiting command. Riven stepped forward. Kale, this is your fleet. Call the shot. Kale's voice was clear and calm. Fire. The sky lit up. Bright beams of light shot from the Valorian ships, cutting through space like swords. The enemy destroyers returned fire, but they were slower, older tech, weaker shields. One by one, the destroyers began to fall, blasted apart, or disabled by the precision of the ancient fleet. On board the Harrower, Riven watched the battle unfold. They're not just fighting, Mara said. They're dancing, Kale nodded. This fleet was built for unity. They move as one. Nova's voice returned. 5 enemy ships destroyed. 3 retreating. They'll be back, Riven said. And next time with more. Vera looked at Kale. Then we need to strike first. Kale agreed. The Valorian fleet is ready. But we'll need allies. Riven knew what he meant. You want to wake more? Kale turned to him. There are other graveyards. Other forgotten fleets. We wake them. We end this war once and for all. The Titan stood behind them, silent. And still, the frozen giants had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The battlefield around the graveyard had grown quiet again. The enemy ships were gone, destroyed, or retreated. The Valorian fleet had proven their power, but victory brought questions. Commander Riven sat alone in the Harrower's observation deck, staring at the stars, his mind full of doubt. Behind him, the door slid open. Captain Kale stepped in, his long shadow following him. They're scared, Kale said softly. Riven didn't turn. They should be. You just woke a ghost army. They fear what they can't control, Kale replied. Riven finally looked at him. That includes you, doesn't it? Kale gave a small smile. Maybe. The two stood in silence for a moment. Outside, dozens of Valorian ships floated, waiting. Inside them were warriors who had slept for centuries. Some had adjusted. Others were struggling. Nova's voice broke the silence. Commander, we've received a signal. Weak, ancient code. Origin, deep inside Valorian cruiser the Helix Thorn. Kale's expression changed. That ship was lost during the betrayal. It never returned. Apparently it's back, Riven said. And someone's still alive on it. Kale leaned in. Then we need to find them. Now. The docking was rough. The Helix Thorn was drifting, damaged and cold. Its hull was covered in scars, with one wing almost torn off. As Riven, Mara, and Kale stepped inside, their helmets fogged with cold air. No lights, no systems. Only silence. Keep your weapons ready, Kale warned. If something survived here, it may not be human anymore. They moved slowly through dark corridors, stepping over frozen wires and shattered glass. The deeper they went, the colder it got. Every sound echoed like a scream. I don't like this, Mara whispered. Riven glanced at her. We came here to find the truth. That's what I'm afraid of, she said suddenly. A door slammed shut behind them. The hallway lit up with red emergency lights. Nova's voice crackled through their earpieces. Life signs detected. One subject. Vital signs weak, near the command chamber. They moved faster now. The ship creaked around them as if it didn't want to be disturbed. Then they reached the chamber. Inside, one stasis pod stood upright. The glass was cracked. Frost covered everything. But inside, a man was alive barely. His skin was pale, lips blue, but his chest rose and fell slowly. Riven. Step forward. Is he Valorian? Kale studied the markings on the pod. Yes, he was one of our tacticians. A strategist. Name, Saren Vale. Can we wake him? Mira asked. Kale nodded. We have to. He might know what happened to the Helix Thorn. Riven placed his hand on the console. Do it, Steam hissed. The pod opened. The man inside gasped for air. His eyes snapped open, glowing faint white. He coughed, then looked around, confused and afraid. Where am I? He whispered. Kale. Step forward. You're safe, Saren. It's me, Kale. Saren blinked. No, it can't be. You died. They told us you died. I'm alive, Kale said. You are too. Saren sat up slowly, shaking. The others? You're the only one we found here, Riven said. Saren looked at him. Puzzled. Who are you? Commander Riven. I'm from the present. You've been asleep for over 300 years. Saren closed his eyes, trying to understand. Then he said something that froze them all. Double quotes. No. I wasn't asleep. I was trapped. Kale stepped closer. What do you mean? They didn't freeze me. They locked me inside. Manual override. I couldn't get out. I watched the others die, one by one. Who locked you in? Mara asked. Saren's face turned pale. One of our own. Riven leaned in. Who? Saren looked at Kale, terrified. It was Vera. Kale stiffened. That's impossible. She sabotaged the ship. We were on a mission. She said it was to protect Valorian secrets. But then, she turned on us. She wanted to keep the tech for herself. She said the future didn't need generals, just rulers. Riven and Mira exchanged shocked looks. Kale shook his head. She saved me. She helped wake the fleet. No, Saren sighed. She's been awake for years. You think she just woke up with you? She lied to all of you. She's been waiting, building something in the dark. Nova interrupted. Commander, I've lost contact with the Aegis Star. No response from Vera's ship. Riven grabbed his. Come, Vera, respond. This is Commander Riven. Silence. Saren's voice cracked. She's not going to answer. She doesn't need you anymore. Kale turned away, his face full of confusion. No. It doesn't make sense. She was never loyal, Saren said. She planned to rule what was left of the fleet. Riven stood up. Then we need to get back now. When they returned to the Harrower, things were worse than expected. Nova spoke urgently. Commander, Vera's ship has broken formation. She's taken 12 Valorian ships with her. Destination unknown. Where is she going? Mara asked. Kale clenched his fists. The core archives. The what? Riven asked. Kale turned toward him. A hidden place. Deep in the asteroid belt of Nevran 9. That's where we stored the ancient tech, the blueprints, the codes, the weapons no one should ever use again. Saren stepped forward. She's going to take them. And once she does, no one will be able to stop her. Nova interrupted again. One more thing. Vera just sent out a broad signal. Galaxy-wide. She's calling herself the High Regent of the new Valorian Order. Mara gasped. She's trying to restart the war. With her in charge. Riven looked at the stars outside. The fleet had woken, yes, but not all of it was loyal. And the real danger had just begun. He turned to Kale. Can we stop her? Kale nodded, but his voice was tight. We have to. Before the survivor becomes the destroyer. Riven looked at the frozen stars and whispered, then we go to war again. Not to wake the past, but to protect the future. The galaxy stirred as echoes of an ancient name filled the airwaves. High Regent Vera of the New Valorian Order. Those were the words now broadcast across the stars. They carried fear, confusion, and danger. On board the Harrower, Commander. Riven stood at the center of the command bridge, his jaw tight. She's gone rogue, said Mira, pacing near the screen. 12 warships at her command, Titans on board. And now she wants to unlock the core archives? Kale stood silently. His armor reflected the soft lights of the ship, but his face looked older now, as if the past had finally caught up to him. I trained her, he said. She believed in justice once. But that was before the betrayal. Before she decided power was the only way to survive. Riven turned to Saren Vale, the strategist they had rescued. You said the core archives were full of ancient weapons. What exactly are we talking about? Saren nodded slowly. Weapons designed to wars in one strike. We called them God tools, devices that could bend time, erase gravity, or burn entire planets. They were sealed in a vault powered by the heart of a dying star. Mara frowned. And she knows how to unlock it? Kale nodded. She helped build the security system. She has access. Riven stared at the screen where Vera's stolen fleet moved toward the Nevran 9 asteroid belt. Then we have no choice. We go after her. If she gets inside that vault, no one, not us, not the galaxy, will be able to stop her. The flight to Nevran 9 was long and tense. The asteroid field surrounding the system was thick, filled with unstable rocks and electromagnetic storms. It was the perfect place to hide a vault meant to never be found again. As the Harrower entered the belt, Nova spoke. Enemy ships detected. Valorian signatures. 12 vessels in defensive formation. Around the central asteroid. Vera's already inside, Mara said. She hasn't activated the vault yet, Saren added. We might still be on time. Riven turned to Kale. Then let's stop her before it's too late. They boarded the Aegis Vault, an ancient asteroid base carved deep into rock and wrapped in layers of old metal and energy fields. It was cold, silent, and filled with technology far beyond what the modern galaxy understood. Strange symbols lit up as they walked through the tunnels. She's already past this level, Saren whispered. Look, fresh footprints. Kale raised his weapon. Stay alert. She won't be alone. Just then, a sudden voice echoed through the chamber. I knew you'd follow me, Kale. Vera stood at the far end of the room, dressed in black armor, her eyes glowing white. Beside her stood 2 Titans, massive, silent, ready to strike. You betrayed us, Kale said, stepping forward. You betrayed everything Valorian stood for. No, Vera said calmly. Valorian betrayed itself. It let the core bury. US, let our soldiers rot in the dark. I'm fixing that. I'm building a new order. One that cannot be crushed or silenced again. By taking ancient weapons, Riven asked, you'll destroy millions. Vera looked at him with a strange smile. Only if they try to stop me. Kale took a deep breath. You don't have to do this. We can wake the rest of the fleet. Take back our place. Together. I don't want our old place, she said. I want to rewrite the stars. Suddenly, she raised her hand. The 2 Titans rushed forward. Defensive fire. Riven shouted. Blasters roared. Mara rolled behind a pillar and took aim, hitting one of the Titans in the shoulder. It staggered, but kept coming. Kale met the second Titan head-on. His blade sparked as it clashed with the massive soldier. Their fight was fierce, steel against steel, ancient skill against brutal strength. Meanwhile, Saren ran to the control console. She's trying to activate the vault. I can slow her down. Hurry! Riven shouted, dodging another blast. Kale finally struck a weak point. His blade pierced the Titan's chest, dropping it to the ground. The second one charged him, but Riven shot its leg from behind, giving Kale just enough time to strike again. Both Titans fell, but Vera was already at the vault door. "I can't stop her alone," Saren said. "She's using her DNA as the key." Riven rushed to her. "What if we overload the entry system?" "It might destroy the vault entirely," Saren warned. "We can't let her in," Kale said. "Do it." Saren entered the override codes. Sparks flew, the vault door shook. Vera turned, furious. "You fools!" A massive explosion shook the room. The door froze in place, locked forever. Vera screamed and charged forward, but Kale caught her, slamming her against the wall. "Why?" he asked, voice cracking. "Why turn against us all?" Vera's voice trembled. "Because I couldn't watch us die again. I had to do something." "You chose power over people," he said. She tried to fight, but Kale injected a stasis shot into her neck. Her body went limp, frozen mid-breath. Hours later, back on the Harrower, Riven stood with Kale and Saren. Watching Vera's remaining fleet return. "They've surrendered," Nova reported. "They say they didn't know her full plan." Kale nodded. "They'll be given a choice: return to the fleet, or be decommissioned." Riven looked at the screen where stars twinkled quietly. "So what now?" "We rebuild," Kale said. "But not with fear. With purpose. And the ancient power?" Mara asked. "Sealed," Saren replied. "Let it sleep. Some things are too dangerous, even for warriors like us." Riven smiled. Faintly. "Let the past stay in the past." But deep in the asteroid field, behind layers of ice and time, something inside the vault still pulsed softly, waiting, silent, ancient. For now, it would remain buried. Silence had returned, but it wasn't peaceful. After stopping Vera and sealing the core archives, Commander Riven expected calm. He hoped the war would slow, that the galaxy would take a breath. But peace never came that easily. Inside the Harrower, Riven stared at a glowing screen filled with encrypted transmissions. Nova, the ship's AI, displayed the files slowly. "These are stolen messages," Nova explained. "Intercepted from Allied Core Command. Hidden signals sent to deep space units. All marked with one name, Admiral Bren Vox." Riven frowned. "Why would an admiral be tracking us?" Mara leaned over his shoulder. "Because we woke something they wanted to stay dead. The Valorian fleet wasn't supposed to rise again. We broke their silence." Kale stepped into the room, his armor still showing the scars from the battle with Vera. He crossed his arms and stared at the screen. "Vox ... I remember that name. He was a junior officer during the betrayal. One of the ones who helped shut US down. His family swore loyalty to the core." "Looks like the family business is still alive," Riven said. Nova continued. "A small fleet under Vox's command is heading toward us. Stealth-class ships. High cloak signatures. Estimated arrival, less than 12 hours. "They're not coming to talk," Mara muttered. Riven looked at Kale. "We need to move, before he gets here." "Where?" Kale asked. "To the Council." Kale raised an eyebrow. "You think the Galactic Council will listen?" "They buried the truth just like Vox." "They'll listen," Riven said. "Because I have proof, and because if they don't, this galaxy's going to burn again." Hours later, the Harrower broke through the clouds of the neutral station Yaren's Gate, the closest council hub. It was a quiet place, no weapons, no warships, only diplomats and watchers. But even quiet places held shadows inside the station. Guards watched them carefully as Riven and Kale walked the metal halls toward the main chamber. "Do you really think this is wise?" Kale whispered. "We need allies," Riven replied. "You want to lead a fleet that protects the galaxy? We can't do that as ghosts. We need to be seen." The great chamber doors opened. Light flooded in. 12 council members sat in a circle, their faces hidden behind glowing masks. "Commander Riven," said one, "you arrive without warning, armed and with a historical figure beside you." "Captain Kale," Riven said, "survivor of the First War, leader of the Valorian fleet." The council chamber murmured quietly. Another voice spoke. "That fleet is supposed to be gone." "It's not," Riven said. "And it just saved your systems from a new tyrant, Vera." Third counselor leaned forward. "She was one of yours, wasn't she?" "Yes," Kale answered. "And we stopped her. But someone else is moving now. Admiral Bren Vox. He's coming to silence us. Again." More murmurs. Why would an Allied Corps admiral attack his own? One asked. "Because we found the truth," Riven said. "About the betrayal. About the graveyard. About the weapons locked away. Vox's family helped hide it all. Now we're a threat." The chamber went silent. "Do you have proof?" A voice finally asked. Nova's voice echoed from Riven's come. Transmission uploaded. Encrypted messages began to display above. The chamber orders to erase Valorian ships, logs of payments, silent kill missions hidden from the public. The counselors whispered louder now. One of them stood. "These are serious claims." "They're not claims," Riven said. "They're history. And now Vox is coming to finish what his ancestors started." Kale stepped forward. "I don't ask for war. I ask for recognition. Let the fleet return. Let us stand. Or bury us again and let the shadows take control." Suddenly, Nova's voice cut in again, urgent this time. "Commander, enemy ships have exited warp. 5 destroyers. Admiral Vox's flagship is among them." "In our space," a counselor gasped. "He's not waiting," Mara said. "He's coming for blood." The chamber lights dimmed. Alarms began to ring. Outside, the sky lit up with ship movement. Vox had arrived. In orbit, the Harrower powered up its weapons. Valorian ships, still cloaked, began to form behind it. The council station scrambled to defend itself. "Open a channel," Riven said. Nova complied. Admiral Bren Vox appeared on screen. His face was sharp, clean, cold. His voice matched. "Commander Riven, Captain Kale, you've gone too far. You're trespassing on council land," Riven replied. "Turn back." Vox smiled slightly. "You woke ghosts. Now I'll bury them again." He cut the signal. Kale looked at Riven. "He's not bluffing." "No," Riven said. "But neither are we." The battle began fast. Vox's ships moved with deadly precision, their weapons sharp and silent. But the Valorian fleet fought like fire, fast, flowing, connected by instinct and memory. Riven's ship darted between blasts. Mara directed the firing systems. Nova kept shields steady. "We're outgunned," she said, "but not outmatched." One by one, Vox's destroyers were pushed back. But his flagship remained, anchored like a predator. Kale moved in with 3 Valorian cruisers. "Riven, I'm going in." "Kale, wait," Riven tried to say, but Kale was already charging, inside. The enemy flagship, Kale landed with a small team. Blasters fired. Alarms screamed. He moved like lightning, cutting through Vox's guards until he reached the bridge. There, standing tall and smiling, was Admiral Bren Vox. "You should have stayed dead," Vox said. "You should have stayed." "Honest," Kale replied. They clashed. Kale's blade against Vox's staff, old tech against new. Sparks flew. The fight was brutal, fast, personal. Vox struck hard, but Kale was stronger. Years of sleep hadn't dulled his purpose. Finally, Kale disarmed him. Vox fell to his knees. "You'll never win," he hissed. "They fear you." Kale looked down, then let them fear the truth. He turned away as guards swarmed in. The battle was over. Later, aboard the Harrower, the council sent a message. "Admiral Vox has been arrested. The council will begin a full investigation. Captain Kale." The Valorian fleet is officially recognized. Welcome back. Mara smiled. So we're not ghosts anymore. Kale didn't smile. He stared out the window at the stars. There are more like Vox, he said. More shadows. We've only just begun. Riven nodded slowly. Then let's bring them into the light. And across the galaxy, whispers began to change. The lost fleet had returned, not to destroy, but to rebuild. To finish a war that never truly ended. But in the deepest corners of space, something else stirred. Something darker than even Vox, watching, waiting, ready for its turn. Darkness stretched across the stars like an endless ocean. But in that darkness, something ancient stirred, a force long forgotten. Now returning with purpose, of Commander Riven stood on the bridge of the Harrower, watching the quiet space outside. His eyes were tired, but alert. He knew silence didn't last forever. Nova's voice echoed through the chamber. Fleet systems sensed. Valorian warships are now fully operational. Orders? Riven took a deep breath. Wake them all. A low hum passed through the ship, and across 100 vessels hidden in the shadows, old engines sparked to life. Blue lights flickered across hulls marked with time. The Valorian fleet, once lost, once frozen, was rising again. Kale stepped. Beside him, his armor polished but battle-worn. I never thought I'd see this. All of them awake again. They've waited long enough, Riven said. Now it's time to move. Behind them, Mara rushed into the room. We have a signal, she said, handing Riven a datapad. A deep space beacon. Not core, not council, something older. Kale took the pad and stared at the readings. His face darkened. I know this code. It's precursor. From before the First War, we buried that tech. Looks like someone just unburied it, Riven said. Where is it coming from? Mara's. Voice lowered. Sector X-19, the fractured belt. Silence settled in the room. That sector hadn't been touched in decades. It was where the old wars ended and where many secrets had been lost. Nova added quietly. Satellite imaging shows energy spikes across the belt. Gravitational shifts. Something is waking up. Riven's eyes narrowed. Or someone's trying to wake it. Kale clenched his fists. We can't let that happen. Then we stop it, Riven said. The Valorian fleet moved like a wave across the stars, quiet, cold, and powerful. Ships long thought dead now soared through space like blades of light. Each one had a story, a name, a ghost inside. And now, they had purpose. As they entered the fractured belt, the view outside changed. Floating ruins, shattered moons, and broken space stations drifted like forgotten bones. It was a graveyard, and something inside it was pulsing. There, Nova pointed on the display. That station. Power levels increasing. It's not old tech. It's been rebuilt. Riven leaned forward. Any sign of enemy ships? Too many, Mara said, scanning the radar. Looks like core deserters, merc fleets. Even rogue AI. Signatures. Someone built an army here, Kale growled. Then we tear it down, but Riven held up a hand. No, not yet. We need to know what they're protecting. The team boarded a small dropship and flew toward the station. As they got closer, strange lights blinked across its surface, shapes Riven didn't recognize. Inside, it was even stranger. The halls were too smooth, the air too still. Mara touched a panel. This isn't human design. A voice rang out suddenly, cold and sharp. You should not have come. Riven spun, blaster raised. A figure stepped from the shadows, tall, cloaked, with a mask of silver light. I am Helix, the voice said. Protector of the Forge, the last architect. Kale stared. You're one of the precursors. I am what remains, Helix answered. And you are walking into a fire you cannot stop. What fire? Riven asked. Helix pointed to a glowing chamber ahead. The Corps betrayed more than you know. They found precursor weapons during the First War. They stole them, used them, buried the rest. Now, they are trying to activate what they don't understand. Kale stepped forward. Then help us. Stop them. Helix turned away. I am bound to the Forge. I cannot interfere. But you ... you were chosen by the silence. That gives you a chance. Mara frowned. Chosen? Helix didn't answer. The chamber behind him began to glow red. Go, he said. Before the betrayer returns. Back aboard the Harrower. Alarms screamed. Nova's voice was tense. Enemy fleet incoming. 4 carriers, 8 destroyers, their lead ship. It's marked with Vox's family crest. Riven's blood turned cold. He had a brother. Admiral Corin Vox, Nova confirmed. He's leading them. Kale's jaw tightened. We don't run this time, Riven nodded. No, this time we rise. The battle came fast. Corin's fleet charged in with fury, but the Valorian ships moved with grace. They danced between blasts, their shields gleaming like blue armor. Riven directed the fleet with calm precision. Focus on their engines. Don't destroy disable. Kale led a strike team through the enemy's flank. Mara jammed their comms and hacked their targeting systems. Soon, one of the enemy carriers exploded. Another spun out of control. Its systems fried. But then Corin's voice broke through the noise. You think you've won? This fleet is nothing. You don't know what's buried beneath you. And suddenly, the ground below the fractured belt split. A massive form rose from the darkness, black metal, glowing with red veins. A Titan. A weapon, Nova gasped. Its precursor tech. Fully activated. Helix's voice whispered into Riven's come. They've awakened the Leviathan. The monster's eyes glowed. Its cannons charged. Even the stars seemed to shudder. Mara's voice cracked. We can't stop that thing. Kale shouted. Yes, we can. We're not just soldiers, we're Valorian. Riven took the come. All ships, focus fire on the Leviathan's core. Hit it hard. Hit it now. The fleet responded. Beams of blue and white light shot across space, hammering the Leviathan. The great beast roared, its shields cracking. Nova yelled. Critical damage detected. One more strike. Kale charged forward in his ship, weapons blazing. He fired straight into the Leviathan's core. There was a flash of white, and then silence. The Leviathan shattered into pieces, burning as it fell into the belt. Corin's ship turned to flee. Riven whispered, Let him go. Kale's voice was low. There will be more. Yes, Riven said, but so will we. Later, as the fleet floated in quiet victory, the stars felt warmer. Riven stood on the bridge and looked out at the sea of ships. They've risen, he said. And they won't fall again. Kale nodded. The war isn't over. But now ... we have hope. From the shadows of space, new allies sent signals. Old enemies went silent. And somewhere, deep in the dark, others watched. The lost fleet had returned, and the galaxy would never be the same. The stars were quiet again, but the silence felt different now. Not empty waiting. Commander Riven stood on the edge of the Harrower's observation deck, staring out at the shattered remains of the Leviathan. Smoke still drifted in space like black fog. Pieces of the great war machine glowed red, slowly fading into the cold dark. We stopped it, Kale said beside him, arms crossed. But it's not over. Riven didn't move. No, the galaxy saw what we did here. That kind of power. It changes everything. Behind them, Mara entered the room, datapad in hand. We've intercepted a new transmission. It's coming from the Core Council. Kale's eyes narrowed. Let me guess, they're not happy. Not at all, Mara said. They're demanding you surrender the fleet. Riven gave a short laugh. Of course they are. They called the Valorian ships unauthorized war assets, she added. They want to take control. Kale slammed a fist on the table. They left. These ships to rot. If we hadn't reactivated them, the galaxy would be ashes right now. They don't care, Riven said. They only want power. Mara hesitated, then spoke softly. There's more. A coded message from Helix. That name made the room. Go silent. What does he say? Riven asked. She held out the pad. He says, the Council knew. They always knew. Riven took the datapad, reading the rest in silence. His jaw tightened. He's telling the truth. They knew about the precursor weapons. They hid them. Used them. And when they lost control, they blamed others. Kale stared. So they started the war? No, Riven said slowly. They rewrote it. The truth was like a fire. It spread quickly. Within hours, Riven's team decrypted ancient records, battle logs, hidden files, old transmissions buried in the Valorian fleet's memory banks. They told a different story. The Galactic War hadn't been started by rebels or invaders. It was a cover-up. The Core Council had found precursor technology decades ago. They tested it in secret. But when it broke containment and destroyed an entire sector, they needed a scapegoat. So they blamed the outer colonies, sparked a war, and used that war to tighten control over the galaxy. They lied to everyone, Mara whispered. They caused the war, then fed more lies to keep it going. Kale was shaking with anger. Millions died, entire planets wiped out. For what? Their secrets? Riven stood quietly. Then he turned to Nova. Can we broadcast this across the system? Nova's voice was calm. Yes, Commander, but it will start a fire. Good, Riven said. Let the galaxy burn with truth. An hour later, every screen, beacon, and array across the known systems lit up with a message. This is Commander Riven of the Valorian fleet. What you've been told about the war ... is a lie. They showed the files, the evidence. The betrayal. Some cheered. Some cried. Others demanded justice. But in the council chambers on Core Prime, panic spread like lightning. They're exposing everything, one counselor shouted. Send the strike fleets. Too late, another answered. Several colonies have declared independence. Even some core military units are siding with Riven. A tall man at the head of the room slammed his cane. Then we erase him. The betrayer's shadow returned. Admiral Corin Vox, I will finish what you failed to, he said, eyes glowing faintly. Prepare the Eclipse Protocol. Back aboard the Harrower, Nova gave the warning. Incoming fleet. 24 ships. Flagship identified, the Eclipse. Blade, Corin is here. Kale looked at Riven. He's not giving up. No, Riven said. But neither are we. The Valorian ships turned, facing the enemy head-on. This time they weren't alone. Ships from rebel colonies, rogue AI, and even former Core soldiers joined them. The galaxy was choosing sides. Corin's voice came over the comm. You've doomed them, Riven. The Council was order. You offer chaos. You gave them silence, Riven replied. We offer truth. Then the war began again, but it felt different now. Ships moved with fury, but also with purpose. Riven fought not just to win, but to end the lies. Mara jammed the enemy's control signals. Kale led a strike to disable Corin's escort. And above it all, the Harrower drove straight for the Eclipse Blade. Inside the enemy ship, Corin watched coldly. He's still just a soldier, he said. He doesn't understand how the world works. Riven's voice cut through. I understand enough, and I know you're afraid. Corin scowled. Of what? Of the people finally waking up. The final blow came fast. The Harrower fired a direct beam into the Eclipse Blade's core. The ship shook, systems failing. Riven gave one last warning. Surrender. Corin stood in the chaos. I'd rather burn. And he did. The Eclipse Blade exploded, taking Corin with it. The Council's last shadow was gone. After the battle, the galaxy stood still. No more commands came from Core. No more lies. Only choices, one by one. New leaders rose, chosen by the people, not forced by power. The war wasn't forgotten. But it was rewritten. And the Valorian fleet? They stayed in the stars. Watchers. Protectors. A symbol of truth rising from silence. Riven stood once more on the bridge, looking out. Kale stepped beside him. "We did it." "No," Riven said. "We just started." Mara smiled. "What now?" He turned to them, his voice calm and sure. "Now we build something better." And across the stars, the future began.